cranberry sauce, stuffing, lashings of gravy, and, of course, the main event, turkey. We put so much time and effort into making Christmas dinner, don't we? One of the biggest meals of the year, literally the biggest meal of the year. But do you ever go overboard on ingredients and end up with far too much food? Joining me now is Chef Vera to share with us his top tips on what to do with your Christmas leftovers. Barry, thank you very much for joining us. Happy Christmas Eve, I think, isn't it? Well, OK, now, Christmas dinner, OK, there is always way too much food. So what are your top tips for these leftovers? What are we meant to do? And what can you eat, what's left over?
Well, I think you can eat everything, really. And I think it's just sometimes being a little bit creative. I mean, we all go back to, you know, having cold cuts the next day. I mean, I'm a Yorkshire man, so it was cold cuts and bubble and squeak and pickles the next day. But I think a little bit more creativity and making it a bit more fun for the family. You know, quite often people say turkey is dry. I don't think it needs to be. I think when you're roasting your turkey, getting enough butter under the skin kind of maintains that moisture within. But also, and then obviously it helps then within a day or two afterwards what you're using it for. But there are varying things. I mean, at the restaurant here, we do a thing called a shooter sandwich, which is actually layers. It's a loaf of bread, and we use beef. But what we do is caramelize onions and saute mushrooms, and then grilled steak, and then we layer it all up with horseradish and mustard. You could do this with turkey, and then what we do is we pack it down, press it. It goes back to Edwardian times. And instead, maybe a little bit of mustard, but more maybe Dijon mustard and cranberry sauce, and press it. And then you slice it and you just fry it in a little bit of butter. And then you have this beautiful, rich sandwich. You could do a toad in the hole, but using chipolatas and Brussels sprouts, red onions, and obviously turkey as well, dicing up the turkey. My mum always used to make a really wonderful turkey soup. Which is great, and in that we put pasta and fresh tomatoes and vegetables, and I suppose the list goes on. You know, you've got risotto. You know, where do you stop? But I think it's also about utilising everything and the vegetables, because we always make too many vegetables and too many potatoes. So why not make a pie, like a bit of a hodgepodge pie or something like that? So there are many ways you can do it.
What about the dreaded Brussels sprouts? I often get taken to task, I mean, as a kid by my mum and still now by my mum, many, many decades on, about Brussels sprouts. Never ate them then, not going to eat them now. And they're always left on the plate. So what's the best thing you can do with those? I mean, can you make them into soups and things like that?
I've never made a soup with a Brussels sprout, but I suppose you have cabbage soups and everything else possibly you could. I think, you know, the thing is, the main thing is not overcooking your Brussels sprouts. You know, we always remember the old days where they were boiled to death and it was more puree when you put your fork in. And, you know, just cook them so there's still a little bit of crunch left in them, a little bit of texture. And then I finish them in with crumbled chestnuts and lardons of bacon or pancetta, and fry them in butter so you get some colour around the outside as well, and maybe some fresh herbs like maybe some chopped tarragon, some chopped parsley. And, you know, they can be used quite well afterwards, and they can be regenerated as well, so you can re-saute them as well and still have enough texture in there as well. That gives it a really lovely flavour. And adding the chestnut and the herbs and the bacon in there as well, and smoked bacon adds great flavour. You're making my mouth water already, Barry. So what about the stuff you can't really keep over, though, and eat sort of like, you know, for the next few days? Is there anything that should come with a warning about, like, eat it on the day and then it has to be, you know, put in the bin, basically? I think it's many families sometimes roast more than one joint. If you're bringing in something like pork, especially, you've got to be careful, especially when reheating pork, things like that. I mean, the rest of it all is just making sure that once you've used it, you've allowed it to cool, and you put it in the fridge and you store it properly. Cover it in the fridge as well, because obviously your fridge is running, the motor's running, so it's going to dry things out as well. So when you open the fridge door the next morning and you see it all dried, it doesn't look appetising, and most of the time it actually isn't. So you then end up wasting loads of food. And also sometimes when you're looking at it and you're about to start cooking it, do you need that much? Or do you keep it for a few more days? Because, you know, everybody's mostly off between now and probably, let's say, the 2nd or 3rd of January. There's plenty of food to have. Just, you know, pace it out.